They met on the edge of the desert, two warriors who'd rather die than bow. Best Wild West stories. The desert of Caldera. 9 did not forgive mistakes. Its red sand stretched beyond the horizon, broken only by sharp stone ridges and the remains of machines that had failed long ago. The sun burned high in the pale sky, turning metal hot and water precious. Most species avoided this place. Humans settled it. Jonah Creed rode alone. His transport bike moved slowly across the sand, its engine humming in a steady rhythm. Jonah wore a long dust coat faded by years of sun and wind. A simple badge hung on his chest, scratched, old, but still clear. Frontier Marshal. Behind him, Ashfall waited. Ahead of him lay the border, and somewhere beyond that border, trouble was coming. Jonah stopped his bike at the edge of a stone ridge and removed his goggles. His eyes scanned the desert. He had learned long ago that danger often appeared first as silence. The wind died. No birds, no insects. Even the sand seemed to hold its breath. Jonah rested his hand near his sidearm, but did not draw it. Fear made people careless. Calm kept them alive. That was when he saw the shape moving through the heat. It was tall, too tall to be human. The figure walked instead of riding, its heavy steps pressing deep marks into the sand. Metal armor covered its body, dark and angular, reflecting the sun in sharp lines. A long weapon rested across its back. Jonah exhaled slowly. So, he muttered, they finally sent one. The alien stopped about 20 steps away. For a long moment, neither moved. The being removed its helmet. Its face was gray and hard, marked by ridges that spoke of age and battle. Its eyes were dark, steady, and unafraid. I am Karek of the Iron Covenant, the alien said. Its voice was deep, controlled, and carried easily across the sand. You are human. Jonah nodded once. Last I checked, you stand on land claimed by the Covenant, Karek said. Jonah glanced at the desert around them. Funny, didn't see a fence. Karek studied him. You show no fear. Jonah shrugged. He took most of it. The wind returned, slow and warm. Karek stepped closer. His armor hummed quietly, powered by technology far beyond human design. Jonah noticed every detail. The strength in the alien's stance, the balance, the way its hands stayed close to its weapons without reaching for them. A warrior. Not a brute. You are armed, Karek said. So are you, Jonah replied. Yes. Another pause. Why are you here, human? Karek asked. Jonah looked past him toward the endless desert. Because this is where things usually go wrong. Karek tilted his head slightly. The town behind you. Ashfall. It resists Covenant authority. Jonah's jaw tightened. Ashfall isn't interested in authority. That is not a choice, Karek said. It is a delay. Jonah smiled, small and tired. Delays matter. Karek considered this. Your kind is fragile, the alien said. Short-lived. Easily broken. Jonah leaned against his bike. You'd be surprised what we can live through. The two warriors faced each other, heat rising between them. The desert watched in silence. Karek broke the stare first. I was sent to measure you. Jonah raised an eyebrow. And? You do not bow, Karek said. Most do. Jonah's voice stayed calm. Bowing's never been our strong suit. There will be consequences. Jonah nodded. There always are. Without another word, Karek turned and walked back into the desert, his heavy steps slowly fading into the sand. Jonah waited until the heat swallowed the figure completely. Only then did he release the breath he had been holding. He mounted his bike and turned toward Ashfall. Ashfall was not beautiful, but it was alive. The town sat where the desert met broken rock, built from metal plates, old ship parts, and stubborn hope. Humans lived here alongside other species who had nowhere else to go. Everyone worked. Everyone watched the sky. Jonah rode through the main street as people paused to look at him. They knew that look on his face. Bad news traveled faster than sound. He stopped near the central tower, where Mara Vance waited. She was older than Jonah, her hair silver, her eyes sharp. You saw them, she said. Yeah. How bad? Jonah removed his goggles. Iron Covenant bad. Murmurs spread through the nearby crowd. Mara crossed her arms. Ultimatum? Not yet, Jonah replied. But it's coming, a young man spoke up. We can't fight them. We don't have to win. The crowd fell quiet. We just have to make it hurt, Jonah continued. Enough that they remember us. Mara studied him. You met one of them. Yeah, and? Jonah looked back toward the desert. He wasn't here to threaten. He was here to understand. That worse? She asked. Jonah nodded. Much. High above Caldera. 9, a shadow moved. The Covenant war platform slipped into orbit, silent and massive, its weapons sleeping, for now. Back in Ashfall, Jonah stood in the street, dust on his coat, sun on his face. He had met the enemy, and neither of them had bowed. The wind carried the taste of metal and sand through Ashfall. It whipped around the buildings, through broken windows, and over rusted rooftops. Children huddled behind doors, and workers paused in the street, scanning the horizon. Something was coming. Jonah Creed could feel it in his bones. He walked through the main street, hands relaxed at his sides, but his eyes sharp. People recognized him instantly. He did not need to shout. His presence alone made them stop talking, made them listen. Ashfall was a town built from stubbornness. Its people were survivors. But even survivors had limits. Mara Vance met him at the edge of the central square. She was already looking at a holographic map projected from a scratched metal device. The streets glowed faintly in blue lines, showing the town's layout, its defensive positions. They will arrive by nightfall, Mara said without looking up. Her voice was calm, but the tension around her eyes was clear. Jonah nodded. How many? Too many, she said. Covenant troops. Drones. Heavy walkers. They don't negotiate. They destroy. Jonah squinted at the desert horizon. He had seen many battles in his life, but nothing like this. Ashfall had resisted off-world corporations and warlords for decades. But the Iron Covenant was different. They were trained, ruthless, and nearly unstoppable. And still, Jonah said slowly, we'll make them regret every step they take here. Mara finally looked up at him, her silver hair catching the sun. That's what worries me. You don't think about losing, Jonah shrugged. I don't lose. I survive. A young boy ran up, clutching a small metal device, sparks flying from the broken wires. Marshal, I've finished the traps, Jonah smiled faintly. Good. Let's make them uncomfortable. The townspeople moved quickly. Humans and other species working side by side prepared the town. They reinforced walls with scrap metal, dug hidden pits in the streets, and mounted jury-rigged turrets. Every small action was calculated to make the enemy pause, slow them down, even if it could not stop them completely. Jonah walked among them, checking every detail. He inspected a hidden cannon powered by repurposed chip engines. He tested a spike trap hidden under a tarp. He encouraged a group of teenagers practicing archery with modified energy bows. Each person mattered. Each small effort added weight to the human resistance. Even the animals of Ashfall seemed to sense the approaching storm. The desert wolves and sandbirds kept their distance, but their eyes followed every movement of the townspeople. Jonah had always believed that survival was more than fighting. It was watching, listening, and using everything around you. By midday, the heat became unbearable. Jonah wiped sweat from his forehead, breathing heavily. He climbed the central tower, scanning the horizon with a long-range optic. The desert shimmered in waves of heat. And then, far in the distance, he saw them. A glint of metal moving steadily across the sand, a column of soldiers and war machines approaching. They're coming, he muttered. Mara appeared beside him. Jonah watched the line grow longer. Bad enough that we have to fight smart, not just hard. Mara nodded. And if we fail? Jonah did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the people below, working together, side by side. We won't fail, not while they still stand. The sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the town. Dust kicked up from the approaching army. Jonah descended to the street level and gathered the town leaders in the square. We don't have the strength to fight them head on, Jonah began. So we'll use what we have. The desert, the traps, our courage. Every machine, every barricade, every hidden sniper counts. A murmur ran through the group. Jonah raised his hand. This is not just about Ashfall, he said firmly. It's about proving that humanity cannot be broken. They may have weapons. They may have size and strength. But they cannot take what we have, Honor. Willpower. The refusal to bow. Tonight we show them that. The crowd fell silent, each person understanding the weight of his words. Some nodded. Some clenched their fists. and some, especially the younger fighters, grinned with reckless determination. By sunset, Ashfall transformed. Barricades of metal and stone lined the streets. Explosive traps were hidden beneath the sand. Towers bristled with jury-rigged weapons. The town that had once seemed small and fragile now looked like a fortress. Jonah climbed onto the central tower again, this time with Mara at his side. They watched the horizon turn from gold to deep orange. The Covenant army advanced steadily, their shadows stretching like long fingers across the desert.
"They're well organized," Mara said.
"I've never seen a force move with such precision," Jonah nodded. "They're used to winning, but that can make them predictable." Mara tilted her head. "You actually think we can win?" Jonah turned to her, eyes steady. "We don't have to win. We just have to make it worth their cost." Night fell. The stars came out over the desert, bright and cold. Fires burned in Ashfall, casting flickering light across the streets. Civilians hid in shelters, while trained fighters took their positions. Jonah moved through the town, checking on each post, offering words of encouragement, making sure the people knew that he was with them. Somewhere beyond the desert, a shadow moved against the starry sky. Jonah's heart sank and lifted at the same time. He knew that shadow well. Karek was there, watching.
Waiting.
And Jonah did not expect mercy. Hours passed. The first sounds of the enemy appeared in the distance. Mechanical whines, the heavy stomp of armored walkers, the faint hum of drones. Jonah climbed the tower one last time. He could see the entire town from there, the barricades, the pits, the makeshift turrets, the brave humans ready to face impossible odds. A single thought passed through his mind. This is what it means to be human. Karek appeared on a ridge just outside the town, silhouetted against the moonlight. The alien's armor reflected the glow of Ashfall's fires. Jonah met his gaze across the desert. This time, they did not speak. Words were useless. Only action would tell the story. And then, the first shots were fired. They were not deadly. Not yet. They were warnings. Laser pulses bouncing off walls, smoke rising from distant sand. Jonah's fighters returned fire carefully, aiming for precision rather than force. Every second mattered. Every move could save a life or cost one. The sound of engines grew louder. Covenant walkers stomped into the desert like living mountains. Drones hovered above, scanning for targets. Jonah watched them and gave quiet orders. "Hold the line. Use the traps. Do not waste fire." Mara stood beside him, her hand on the tower railing. "They're fast." Jonah's eyes did not leave the horizon. So are we. As the first clash of battle reached the outer streets, Jonah felt a strange sense of calm. Did not control him. Doubt did not cloud his mind. Every townsperson fighting beside him, every trap and turret, every plan they had made, this was humanity at its finest. Imperfect, fragile, stubborn, and impossible to break. He knew the night would be long. He knew that Ashfall might not survive. But he also knew that no matter what happened, they would not bow. And sometimes, Jonah thought, that was enough to change the course of a war. The first night of battle had come, and the desert was alive with fire and sound. Ashfall burned softly under the glow of scattered torches and energy shields. From the towers and barricades, human fighters watched the horizon. Dust whipped across the streets, mingling with smoke and the faint smell of burning metal. Jonah Creed stood at the center of the town atop a reinforced platform. Around him, the militia moved like a single organism, calculated, precise, and fiercely determined. Every barricade was manned. Every trap had a watcher. The Covenant army advanced steadily. Walkers stomped over the sand, their massive legs shaking the ground with every step. Drones buzzed above, scanning for weaknesses. Laser fire streaked through the night sky, red and blue, hitting walls and ricochets. Jonah adjusted his goggles and whispered to himself, "Let's see what humans can really do." He fired a signal flare. From the hidden trenches and pits, Ashfall's improvised artillery responded. Cannons powered by old ship engines fired volleys of molten metal and plasma into the advancing walkers. Some stumbled. Sparks flew. The Covenant soldiers froze for just a moment, enough for the human defenders to score more hits. From his vantage point, Jonah saw a figure on a ridge. Karek. The alien watched the battle quietly, assessing, calculating. Jonah felt the weight of those eyes across the desert. Karek had been trained to crush, not to hesitate. Yet here he was, observing. The first real clash came when a squad of Covenant infantry tried to breach the town's walls. Jonah's snipers, hidden on rooftops, picked them off one by one. Mines and hidden traps slowed the rest. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off armor, and sand exploded from the ground in a haze of dust and fire. A young fighter shouted, "Marshal, they're breaking through the north gate." Jonah sprinted toward the gate. Behind him, Mara and a few others followed. When they arrived, they saw the walkers pressing forward. The gate had been reinforced with scrap metal, but even that could not hold against the Covenant's strength forever. Jonah took a deep breath. He studied the walkers, memorizing every movement. Then he gave orders. "Hit the traps. Fire when they stagger. Don't waste energy." Explosions erupted. Hidden pits swallowed smaller vehicles. Molten metal shot from cannons, and one walker toppled with a crash that shook the ground. Dust rose into the air like a storm. Humans cheered, even in the chaos. Every victory, no matter how small, gave them hope. But the Covenant was relentless. Another wave appeared faster and stronger. Jonah realized they could not hold forever.
They needed a game changer.
He turned to Mara. "The cannon on the ridge. Get it ready. Time for a real surprise." Mara nodded. She and a team of engineers raced to the hill, adjusting the weapon and loading its charge. Jonah stayed with the fighters, keeping their morale high, directing fire, and countering enemy moves. Ha! Carrick moved closer. Jonah noticed the alien's hesitation as he approached the walls. He wasn't attacking yet. Something about the humans had caught Carrick off guard. Their courage, their coordination, their refusal to fall, it was unexpected. The cannon fired. A huge beam of molten energy tore across the desert, striking a walker mid-stride. It toppled, and the ground shook like an earthquake. Sparks and fire erupted, and a cheer went up from Ashfall. Hudek's eyes narrowed. The humans were clever. They used every advantage the desert gave them, and they did it without surrendering a single step. The battle continued for hours. Drones flew overhead, scanning the streets. Jonah's fighters used smoke bombs and mirrors to confuse their sensors. Traps delayed walkers. Human ingenuity slowed the inevitable. At one point, a squad of children and teenagers, trained by Jonah and older fighters, used catapults and makeshift bows to pick off enemy soldiers trying to sneak around the edges. Each time they succeeded, their confidence grew. They were small, but they were dangerous. Jonah noticed Carrick again. The alien had taken cover behind a dune, studying the humans. He was not yet attacking directly. It seemed almost as if he were learning from them. Hours passed. Ashfall suffered damage. Buildings burned. Streets cracked under the weight of walkers. But the people never faltered. Jonah moved among them, giving orders, helping carry wounded fighters, fixing broken weapons. His calm presence inspired everyone. "Marshal!" shouted a soldier. "We're running low on ammo." Jonah nodded. "Use every shot carefully. Aim for weak points." "Make 'em count. And don't forget, sometimes the best weapon is your mind." He knew the victory was impossible in the conventional sense. The Covenant had numbers, technology, and strength. But Ashfall had something else. Humans fighting for their home, their people, and their honor. The next wave of walkers broke through a barricade. Jonah sprinted toward the chaos, firing his weapon. Sparks flew. Metal screeched. A Covenant soldier lunged at a fighter, but Jonah intervened just in time, taking the hit for the townsman. He grunted, blood trickling down his arm, but he stayed upright. Everywhere he looked, humans were defying the odds. Civilians had picked up weapons and fought alongside trained soldiers. Engineers improvised defenses in real time. Children and teenagers carried water and ammo under fire, never stopping. Jonah's heart swelled with pride. Carrick's moment came. He stepped into the fray, his massive armor and weapon ready. He was powerful, but he did not strike immediately. Instead, he moved carefully, avoiding unnecessary kills, observing. Jonah realized then that Carrick was wrestling with something he had never experienced before: respect. Finally, the alien spoke across the battlefield, voice booming over the chaos. "Human, your kind is stubborn, reckless, impressive." Jonah shouted back, "We do not bow. Not to fear, not to power, not to death." For a moment, the battle paused. Sparks and smoke hung in the air like a frozen storm. Carrick's eyes met Jonah's. The alien seemed conflicted. Jonah's heart pounded. He knew this moment could decide everything. Then the fight continued. But something had shifted. Carrick no longer attacked indiscriminately. He targeted only enemy squads trying to flank the town. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he was aiding the humans, though not openly. By dawn, Ashfall was scarred. Buildings burned, walls crumbled, streets were torn apart, yet the town still stood. Jonah surveyed the battlefield from the tower, exhausted, bruised, and battered, but alive. His people were alive. That alone was a victory. Karek stepped onto a ridge outside the town. The alien's armor was scratched and dented, showing the marks of the night's battle. Jonah watched him. Neither spoke. Words were not needed. Respect had passed silently between them. Mara joined Jonah at the tower. She looked at the horizon. "They've stopped advancing," she said. "For now." Jonah nodded. "We've shown them what it means to fight humans." Mara frowned. "Do you think Karek will return?" Jonah's gaze did not leave the alien. "I don't know. But whatever happens, we've changed something tonight. They'll remember Ashfall. They'll remember humans." The sun rose over the desert. Ashfall stood, battered but unbroken. Smoke rose from damaged buildings, mixing with the early morning fog. The townspeople emerged from their shelters, weary but determined. They repaired walls, tended to the wounded, and carried water to those who fought through the night. Jonah walked among them. Every face told the story of courage. Every hand held determination. Humanity had survived not by raw strength, but by ingenuity, heart, and the refusal to bow. Karek watched from the ridge one last time. Then he turned and disappeared into the desert, leaving the humans to their victory. Jonah did not cheer, he did not relax, but he felt a quiet satisfaction. Tonight, Ashfall had won. Tomorrow the war would continue. But for now, humans had proven that they could stand against impossible odds.
Jonah looked at the rising sun.
He thought about the desert, the people, and the alien who had changed the rules of the battle simply by respecting the fight, and he knew that Ashfall's story would travel far beyond the desert. That humanity's courage would become a legend. Because sometimes victory was not about defeating every enemy. Sometimes it was about showing that you would never bow. The desert was quiet. Ashfall stood on the edge of the horizon like a scarred but proud warrior. The fires had burned low. Smoke drifted lazily into the pale morning sky. The streets were filled with the wounded, the tired, and the determined. For hours, no one had dared move far from the safety of the walls, waiting, listening, and hoping. Jonah Creed walked through the streets, his coat torn, his arm bruised, and his boots coated with dust and blood. He did not slow down. Every step he took was to reassure the people of Ashfall that they had survived, and that survival was never accidental. Mara Vance met him in the square. "You're still moving like you're ready to fight again," she said, half teasing, half worried. Jonah shook his head, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "I've got to. They might come back. And if they do, I want us ready." Mara looked around at the survivors. "They will, but they'll think twice after last night." Jonah allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Maybe, but we can't rely on that." From the far ridge, a shadow appeared. Jonah squinted. His heart skipped a beat. Karek had returned. The alien stood still for a moment, watching Ashfall. His armor reflected the morning sun, but it was scarred, dented, and scratched, marks from the night's battle. He carried no banner, no weapon raised in attack. He was observing. Jonah's hand rested on his sidearm. He did not raise it. Something told him Karek's visit was not hostile. The alien spoke, his voice deep and steady. "Human, you have survived when none should have. You fight not for conquest, but for honor. That is rare." Jonah nodded. "We fight because we must. Because surrender is not a choice, and because we don't bow." Karek paused, his gaze sweeping the town. "Your people, they inspire. Even me." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "You've been helping, even if quietly." The alien's expression did not change, but there was a hint of acknowledgement. "I am not here to conquer. I am here to witness." The people of Ashfall began to gather in the square, curious and cautious. Karek's presence was immense. His towering figure, his armor, and the air of authority around him caused whispers. Children hid behind parents, while warriors stood taller, proud and unafraid. Jonah stepped forward. "You've seen what we can do. But this is just one town. Humanity is larger, stronger, and stubborn everywhere. You've felt it now." Karek studied him. "You teach lessons without meaning to. Your people will be remembered, even by those who tried to break you." A silence fell. Then Jonah spoke again, quietly but firmly. "Let this be the story they tell, that humans do not bow. That humans survive. That humans fight, not because they want war, but because they must." Mara approached Karek cautiously. "Why do you speak like this? Why help us, even quietly? The alien's eyes met hers. I have followed orders my whole life. I have crushed many who could not resist. But this is different. They fight for each other, not for command. They fight for home that changes things. Jonah looked at the horizon, toward the desert where the Covenant war platform still hovered, crippled but functional. Will they return? He asked. Karek's armor clicked faintly as he shifted. Perhaps, but not without caution. They have learned that humans are not easily broken. Mara exhaled slowly, relief spreading over her face. And Ashfall? Jonah smiled faintly, turning to the town. Buildings were damaged, streets were torn, fires burned in parts, but the people were alive. That was enough. Ashfall stands, and it always will, as long as its people refuse to bow. The alien studied Jonah, then gave a small nod. You are remarkable. I see now why your kind survives where others fail. Not through strength alone, not through numbers, but through will, creativity, and spirit. Jonah nodded, a quiet satisfaction filling him. That's humanity in a sentence. Karek turned to leave. He did not speak again. But as he walked toward the desert, Jonah noticed something. The alien's steps were deliberate, careful, almost respectful. The human town had earned a measure of honor even from an enemy. As the day passed, the survivors began rebuilding. The wounded were treated. Barricades were repaired, fires were put out, and through it all, Jonah moved among them, offering encouragement, giving orders, and ensuring that everyone understood the truth. They had survived because they refused to bow. Traders, travelers, and other frontier towns spoke of Ashfall, the tiny settlement that had defied the Iron Covenant. Rumors grew into stories. Stories grew into legends, and every retelling emphasized the same truth. Humans, small and fragile, could stand against impossibly powerful foes and survive. Children in nearby settlements would later whisper of the marshal who led his people against impossible odds and the towering alien who came to witness their courage. Jonah did not think of himself as a hero. He simply thought of his people, of Ashfall, and of the desert that had tested them all. Mara walked beside him as they watched the sun sink again behind the dunes. Do you think they'll return? She asked. Jonah's gaze did not leave the horizon. Maybe, but we've shown them the cost. We've shown them humans do not bow. That lesson lasts longer than any weapon. Night fell again. The desert was calm, but Ashfall was no longer fragile. It was alive, aware, and ready. The people had survived one of the most impossible nights. And they had done so not through weapons alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and unbroken will. A faint sound echoed from the far ridge. Jonah turned. Farek had returned, briefly, to watch the town once more. This time he did not hide. He stood on the ridge, silent, powerful, observing the humans he had once been sent to destroy. Jonah felt no fear. Instead, he felt understanding. Two warriors, different in every way, had met on the edge of a desert. Neither had bowed. Both had respected the other, and in that respect something had changed. Karek gave a single nod, then turned and disappeared into the desert, leaving Jonah and Ashfall behind. The town cheered softly, knowing the battle was won. For now. But in that cheer was more than relief. It was pride. Pride in survival, in honor, and in the unbroken human spirit. Jonah climbed to the central tower, looking down at his town. The buildings were damaged, the streets torn, the walls scarred, yet the people moved with purpose, cleaning, repairing, and standing tall. He whispered to himself almost as a promise. We will survive. We will fight. We will never bow. The desert stretched endlessly beyond Ashfall, silent now. But humanity's story would travel far. Traders would tell it. Travelers would carry it. And someday somewhere, humans on distant worlds would hear the tale of a small town that refused to bow, a marshal who led with courage, and an alien who came to respect them. Jonah turned from the horizon and walked through the town. Children ran past him carrying supplies. Soldiers and citizens alike moved with quiet determination. He smiled faintly. This was what he fought for. Not for victory alone, not for fame, but for life, honor, and the unbroken human spirit. The desert, harsh and unyielding, had tested them all, and humanity had passed. And somewhere, in the vastness of the stars, a warning traveled with the wind. Humans are fragile, yes, but they are not broken. They do not bow, and they never will.